Hello and welcome once again to Exit Strategy. This is the podcast where I get comedians in here. I ask them, hey, comedian, what would you do with your life if comedy was no longer a part of it? What would this alternate universe look like of you not making people laugh for a living? Sure, you might make people laugh at the office. You might say a funny thing or two, but you know what? That's not your main goal. You're doing something else. What is that? What is your exit strategy? Have I explained the premise enough? Is that, you get it? On today's show, I've got Mr. Joe Kwaczala, comedian on the rise, comedian to watch. He just got back from Louisiana, New Orleans, where he taped his Comedy Central special to come out later this year. So you're going to be hearing a little bit more about Joe Kwaczala as this year goes on. A lot of things going on in his life. You might know him. He is the world's foremost expert on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Perhaps you're a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame enthusiast. You got a Google alert for Joe. You want to find out more about him? And if not, he's the man to tell you all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's got a podcast called Who Cares About the Rock Hall, where he talks about it. And we're in the middle of what he calls #ceremony season. So we're going to get a little insight into the upcoming ceremony for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Also, we're going to talk about Joe is a madman. And in one day in December, one 24-hour period, he released 31 comedy sketch videos, 31 original pieces of content. A lot. See, here's what most people would do in this case. Most people would say, I've got 31 ideas for sketches. And they would take their time and they would put them out maybe 1 week at a time. You put out one video and you'd post a lot about it throughout the week, and you'd say, next week I'll do another one, and you'd really give yourself some time to breathe. No, not Joe. Joe released 31 videos in a single day. And we talk all about that. Turns out it takes a lot of work to create 31 videos. And I'm very intrigued and impressed by this kid's got gumption, and he did it. And we're going to find out all about how he did it. And if he'll do it again. Will he do it again? I don't know. Time will tell. All right, this next part, I'm not going to lie, highly unorthodox, highly out of character. I've never done this before. I'm going to plug something right now. And no, this is not the rate, review, and subscribe portion of the intro. I'm not even going to get into that. You've already rated. You've already reviewed. You've already subscribed. No. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to tell you about something. You want to be a part of this from the ground floor. And it just came into my head. I was talking to Joe after the record, and it got in my head. And I say, you know what? I've got to talk enthusiastically about something that I care about, and that is the Dress Up Gang, which is a show that just went to Sundance. It's created by Corey Lukasik, Donnie Davini, and a few other people. And it is, you want to get on board with this now because they're looking for a network. They're looking for a place for this to be. They need fans. They need followers. I want you to go to their Instagram. It's just Dress Up Gang. Just go to Instagram, search for Dress Up Gang. Give it a follow. Look through all the videos. You're going to see something that has a unique voice. You're going to see something that is, it's like if Wes Anderson did mushrooms, this would be the Dress Up Gang. You got all your favorites of the Dress Up Gang universe. They've been putting out videos in Los Angeles for years, and they got an opportunity to make a television show, and they even got Andy McDowell in it. So it's like they've elevated their game. And if you know about the Dress Up Gang from before, you know they were already putting out stuff that was quality. Now they've got an upped production values, and they're looking for a network. They're looking for a place to put this. So I want to let's throw them a couple more fans, and then tell them Jeff sent you, and let them know, hey, we're on board with this. I think you're gonna watch a couple videos, a couple clips, and you're gonna say, yes, I would absolutely like to see the rest of this. So that, yeah, it's just me doing a good deed for comedians I love. Go check out the Dress Up Gang and await their imminent success because you're going to be on the ground floor for that. I think now that I've made a career, you're welcome, Dress Up Gang. No, I think it's time to get to the exit strategy. I think it's time to get to Joe Kwaczala. Let's do it right now. Here we go. Today's episode starts right after this. Got to get it all out. Professional. This is like the first. It's not that early, but you're the first person that I've really talked to all day, so I've got to like
Yeah, for sure. Get
amp
into
myself up to it, you know.
normal
So
conversational mode.
the first 45 minutes of this podcast are going to be just rough.
Jeff is
baby.
acclimating to the planet.
To human beings. Well, I'm glad you're here, Joe. You're in the middle of what I would call a podcast junket today because you've got another one.
I do have another one. Yeah, it's a real junket.
We got the warm up for the next podcast.
Yeah, if you
coming
can
up.
listen, if you're listening to this, please listen to whatever the next one is. I don't know the title, but if you can find it, you will definitely be able to track a progression from a man who woke up 30 minutes ago to someone who has been raring and living for at least a few
Warming
hours.
him up.
Yeah.
I want to find out what this podcast is because maybe we could do some dual promotion. Here,
Oh,
you know?
or maybe drop a hint, a clue that is only paid off in the next one. I don't know.
You know, we're being facetious about this, but I think this could be a thing. This could really be like, because everything needs a gimmick. Everything needs like a reason
to listen because there's a
listen.
million things,
Yeah.
right? So
my podcast is secretly linked to several other podcasts. You wouldn't even know it.
but it's up to you, listener,
to
find them.
Every one of Joe's podcast appearances all link up into it's the Joe universe.
Yes, the podcast universe, extended universe.
And if you can clue it all together.
Yeah, it will. The payoff will not be satisfying.
No.
But you will have a sense of some accomplishment.
But you will have listened to over, I don't know, 25 and a half hours of Joe.
Yes, right.
I don't know.
At the bare minimum.
I don't know what do you think your collective podcast
As a guest,
as a guest? Well,
it's-
actually, you know what? Let's do a guest and then let's throw in. You got your own.
I do have my own. Yeah. So as a guest, I would guess it would be actually quite low.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's not something I do that often. But if podcasts have been around for a while, and comedians who both have business and no business having podcasts, I've been on both. I want to say maybe in between. This is maybe a large range, 10 to 20 hours as a guest. Maybe I'm being conservative.
Well, I'm glad to be the 21st hour of your podcast.
Or
life.
the 11th.
We'll find
The
out.
range. There was a range. And then I have a podcast about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And we've done 43 episodes of that, and those are at least an hour each. So I'd say we were 50 plus over in that area.
So you got a ways to go before that 20,000
The
or
10,000
10,000 hours.
Malcolm Gladwell?
Yeah.
Yes.
You gotta-
And that's what I'm trying to get to.
I'm going to be the perfect podcast guest. You just came back from New Orleans,
Louisiana. Yeah.
I think they're the same. Well, you were taping a Comedy Central special. Now, wait, what is it? It's not Comedy Central Presents anymore. What's the new name?
So
of
it was classically Comedy Central Presents, and then they went to calling it the Half Hour, and now it's kind of back, and now it's called Comedy Central Stand Up Presents, which might be the clunkiest way to do it, but
More words.
It's the most descriptive.
Yeah. Comedy Central presents a stand-up show that is now happening now.
With a comedian, a stand-up comedian, ... and then that's the title.
Here we go.
Yeah.
How did it go? How was the taping? Was this your first half-hour taping?
Yes. This is essentially my first. What feels like my first anything.
Yeah.
My first TV thing. I did stand up on Comedy Central for 30 seconds. I had done Clusterfest, their festival, and they did a special that aired once that then put some of the comics like little tiny little bites of their stand up.
Taste of Joe.
That's technically me on doing stand up on TV for the first time, but no, this is the first deal, first special.
Yeah.
First, it feels
That's
like first
quite a
anything.
jump from 30 seconds to 30
Yeah,
minutes.
it's quite a bit.
Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of prep to get it to the 30 minutes then? What was your... Because
I had only 30 seconds
I
of
only
material for... everyone knows this about me. I was the 30-second comedian, and that was kind of my brand, and I had that for years. And
it
suddenly,
worked.
Well, yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah, after I did, honestly, the Clusterfest, which was part of Comedy Central's Comics to Watch thing, I felt like, okay, now I am qualified and they will accept my submission for a half hour because they accept submissions every year. But I feel like if you haven't done Comics to Watch or JFL or back in the day like House Party, they're not really going to take it seriously. So I felt like, okay, now I'm in a position where I can submit, and that was in the summer of 2017. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to start building. I'm going to see if I can build a half hour to tape it and then submit to them.
Yeah.
And I was lucky that I had more successful comedian friends who let me open for them, like Beth Stelling and Drew Michael. So I could do a weekend, and what's nice about doing like a club weekend is you have 5 shows, so you can very quickly track the progress of what you're doing and doing a longer set.
So that's what I was going to ask, because like all these comedians from Los Angeles, because there was a pretty healthy group of comedians that are sort of our peers and we know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
It was like Alan Strickland Williams was there.
David Bory.
Was Solomon Giorgio part of that? No, he did two Dope
2 years
Queens.
Ago. He did do 2 Dope Queens recently. Yeah, but
I'm mixing them all together.
This year of the LA batch, Alan, myself, David Bory, Vanessa Gonzalez, and then the rest were either New York or people who just moved here, or like Will Miles and Charles Gould. I consider New York comedians, but they did move here, I think, within the past year.
But it's interesting because they all have to do a half hour, and I know that these people in Los Angeles are not even great comedians are not getting the opportunity to do a half hour at a time.
You really have to. You really have to leave.
That's the weird struggle. It's like you get this huge opportunity, but you don't really get any chance to practice for it.
Yes,
unless you make it.
As soon as they told me I was doing it, I immediately contacted the people I know in Denver so that I could set up
actual shows.
Yeah, I could do 30 minutes every night for 5 nights in a row, and I had that ready to go about 2 weeks before I taped, and that was crucial. That was so helpful for me to get it solidified. Because it was like done, but to have it solidified, and I even like found stuff and was able to play around and like kind of build it and strengthen it to the place I wanted it to be.
It's crazy. I mean, in Los Angeles, you do. I mean, if you're like cream of the crop, everyone knows you like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no one's getting more than 10 minutes really ever.
But if you ever get those, it's for some of us, it's like the only opportunity you get to do longer sets is if you're doing a show where the person who's running it has no idea what they're doing.
Yes, they don't. Like, they're running a bad show.
They're running a horrible show, but they're like, we'll give you 40 minutes. They're like, okay.
It's like, you shouldn't. There's 3 people here, and there's already 7 comics on the show. This is going to be bad, but I'll take it.
You show up at like, I did one once where we showed up. It was like an abandoned storefront, and there's like 4 dudes on a couch, and I think they said all of you can do 45, like some crazy number, and I think the Good 3 Lord. Of us just like, we'll each do 20, right?
Right,
that's probably enough. Yeah,
yeah. When you get those situations, sometimes there's shows where it's like, who are you? You're not a comedian. No one's ever seen you before.
What is your connection?
Somehow you have access to a space, and then you could immediately, when they're like, oh yeah, you guys can do as much as you want. It's like, that's not what you tell comedians. You don't.
Do as much as you want.
I'm not going to light you.
No signal to end it at all.
Yeah.
And then when you are done, I will not be coming on stage. It will just end.
Right. I will tell you I'm hosting, but you'll find out later. No, I'm not. I'm just going to go up and not get their attention, mumble into the microphone, and then say something that I think is the first comedian's name, and then they will look around confused, and then walk up, and then have to essentially host the show.
You will walk up silently. You will walk off silently. I hope that's okay. But I mean, in exchange for being able to do, sometimes it's worth it because you do get up there and you're like, I have to fill this time. And that is where you find weird shit that you can't find when you're doing 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's definitely a different animal. But yeah, you have to leave. You have to leave the city to do.
Have you done a short set now that you have done the 30 minutes at a time for a while? That's going to be weird. I think.
Know. I did after Denver. I did a short set here in LA, and I hated it. I really didn't want to do it. I mean, like, it felt bad because it was like, it was like it was a bar show, and it wasn't great. And I was doing it. I was very happy. I'm happy to take any sets in Los Angeles, but it was like in between running my half hour, and it's like, why am I? It's just making me feel bad.
Does it feel like, because if you're used to doing 30 minutes and then you have to go back to doing a short time and then go back to doing 30 minutes, does that like fuck up your timing at all?
No, not really.
Okay. You
mostly just forget about the 10 minutes as fast as you can.
Yeah. Well, that's the best part about comedy is forgetting. Forgetting all the fucking hundreds and thousands of sets that you've done. They're just all in the past.
Truly.
I mean, how many sets can you honestly remember?
That I can remember?
It's probably like 12 tops.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
the
wonder.
weird ones.
Because at the very least, I can remember most of the venues I've been in, I think. So it's probably, I'd say it's over 100. But the thing is, you remember the venue, you don't remember the set itself.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I'm tricking myself into thinking I remember the set, but really I remember where I was.
Where you were, the little details of like, oh, that's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. That, you're in an Italian restaurant and no one's supposed to be there. And yet you have been asked to do stand-up comedy there. That's the kind of stuff you remember.
So have fun.
Yeah, Jesus.
So really you just remember the trauma, honestly.
There you go. Yes. I have very specific traumatic memories.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about with you was, so I do this podcast every week, and sometimes it is a struggle just to pull together a podcast on a weekly basis.
In terms of like booking,
just willing myself to do it. Sometimes you're just not feeling it, but then just like, what was it, 3 months ago, you had a day where you released 31 videos.
Yes.
31 original comedy videos.
Yes.
All in one day.
Correct.
That I'm staggered by the amount of work that had to have gone into that.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was really a lot, but obviously that was the point.
Yeah.
Was to that it's so hard to distinguish yourself from the pack.
It's true.
There's more comedians, there's more, I hate this word, content out there than ever before, and it keeps growing. And my question I was asking myself was, how do I stand out?
Yeah.
And I know that I can make stuff. And kind of starting there, it was like, well, I know I can make stuff. I have a very good team of collaborators. Daniel Clark, who's a very talented director who I've worked with since I was in college.
Yeah.
And Liz Maupin, who's a very talented producer. And I thought, okay, well, I've never seen anyone release things all in one day throughout the day. It's like, because we've heard of binge watching stuff.
Yeah.
And usually that's coming from a large scale production, a Netflix show, something like that.
There's money behind it.
Yes, right, exactly. But taking that, and also, every year I tweet 300 times in one day.
Yeah.
That's something I've been doing for about 5 years.
Which even that is hard.
That is hard, yes.
It seems like, oh, you just write 300 things, but that is a lot.
It's at least 12 hours. It's a marathon,
By the end, you're just sweating.
But what I found from doing it, the first year I did it, I was like, ha, 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 I'm going to tweet 300 times in one day. Let's see how many followers I lose, right? And I gained followers. Yeah. And every year I would gain and more. And one year I gained 1,000 followers just from that one day.
Just from one day, that's huge.
Yeah. And especially, at that time, it was like nearly like a third of what I had at that point, of followers. Yeah. So I had realized that this worked, that it was becoming my own thing. Like it was a brand of sorts, the idea of releasing a bunch of stuff at once. Yeah. That it was surprisingly more successful than I thought. And when you do it throughout the day, it becomes a thing that people can track. Yeah. People can come in, it becomes an event, it becomes a stunt. Yeah. And the logical progression of that was to take the quantity idea and apply it to something that takes a lot more effort and work, and is more impressive and more ambitious.
Because I will say that, I think maybe somebody's hearing this and they're thinking that you released 31 videos in a day, that it was just like some simple shot on your phone sketch, but they look professional. Yes. And then all the concept, it's not just like two guys in an apartment. There's so many weird conceptual things that you're doing. So how long did it take to produce those 31? How far back from December did you have to start for that?
Yeah, so I think we started. It had been an idea that was obviously rattling around in my mind for a little bit, as most ideas do before they become real. I think the first, I looked into my emails to find our first pre-production meeting really, was in February.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's when we first...
a whole year?
Yeah, pretty much. That's when we first started talking about it. And I had written some stuff already, and I was still writing and doing stuff, and we were talking about, how do we want to do this? Yeah. When's the right time to start? And put this all together. Me and Daniel and Liz, and also we had brought on another producer named Caroline Clark, who was very talented as well. We did not start filming until April, so it was like me writing and us like just kind of getting everything in order. We started filming in April. We all have jobs, so it was on weekends when we had the time, borrowing equipment and begging people to act and stuff or help us or hold a boom or whatever. I mean, it's really asking favors to get this done because we did not have money. And then we shot on weekends, nearly every weekend with some, I was out of town doing stand-up or whatever, April to, I think, August. And then there was the post period where we're editing, which is extremely difficult as well. Yeah. And we were editing pretty much up until we released in November.
This is like, I hope people understand when they saw what you were doing in that day that it was just like the amount of the energy that was put into this is staggering.
I hope I think people get it. It was built a little bit so that people could see because, like you said, every video is extremely different from the last, and they're meant to. It's meant to impress you on a number of levels. Like you're supposed to go, why does this look so good? Mm-hmm. Why is this shot so well? How is this shot so well? And then you're also supposed to say like, oh, these things are so different and funny or interesting in different ways. There's no cheating where like two videos were clearly shot on the same day with like the same premise.
No, nothing easy.
Very, very disparate. Yeah. So the kind of mechanism of it was to, obviously entertain and to be funny, but also to be impressive so that people would pay attention to it.
Yeah. And then what was the how would you rate the success? I mean, obviously the 300 tweets in a day stunt was one thing, but like this is
so this was on the higher end of our expectations.
Good.
Yeah.
You're rewarded for your hard work.
Yeah.
Thank God.
It felt like a lot of people were noticing and sharing, and we got a nice write up on Vulture and the AV Club, which those were two places that we had intended on sending it to them, but they found it organically, which is perfect because it is sad to send something to someone to be like, oh, so maybe you didn't notice this, but for them to see it organically and then write about it on their own is really nice. Stuff has gotten a lot of views and attention, and it just feels cool.
Now I got to ask the question. Are you going to do it again?
I don't know. I don't want to.
Because it's February now, so we're going to have to start.
I'm a little bit behind already.
Get the emails going over here, Joe.
Yeah, I guess the idea would be off of the strength and success of this to get paid to do something like this. Or to get paid to make anything.
I'm going to have to insist you get paid to do this.
Right. Because it feels like you do this to get paid work, not only for yourself, but for the people who helped you for free.
Yeah.
There's kind of, I think, a contract where, hey, if you help me out here, this could lead to something, and then I can pay you for real.
Yeah.
Which would feel nice because a lot of people helped us out, and I would like to thank
them
with money
at some point.
Yeah.
I hope that at some point this pays some bills because my hat's off to you for pulling that off. That was
Thank you.
Very impressive. Before we move on to the exit strategy portion, I got to ask you.
Please.
We are in an exciting time for you.
Of course.
Because in just 2 months, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
A little bit less, yeah.
A little bit less.
The induction ceremony. We are in, as I call it, we are in what I like to call #ceremony season.
Yes.
We know the inductees for this year for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It is Def Leppard, Stevie Nicks, Janet Jackson, Radiohead, Roxy Music, The Cure, and the Zombies.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's
great.
quite a class.
It's a very good class. It's been announced, but we don't know anything about the ceremony yet, but the ceremony will be March 29th in New York, and I will be there.
How many? Okay, for anybody who doesn't know, Joe is and it sounds ridiculous, but it's very true, is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame enthusiast.
Yes.
Dare I say the world's foremost expert
I think,
that's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. How many? When did it start? First
Yeah,
off.
right. Okay, so I remember getting into that type of music, like classic rock music, and concurrently seeing the class of 2001 because they used to air it on VH1, and that was like that was a good class for me because it was a lot of bands that I already liked, like Aerosmith and Queen and Steely Dan. It was and Paul Simon and Michael Jackson. It was a good
Star-studded.
Yeah. And I have distinct memories of watching it and caring about it when I was in high school. Into college, and then I feel like I stopped paying attention to it. So it was like 2001 to maybe 2008 or so.
Yeah.
And then I picked back up on it with an intensity around
fervor.
Yeah, around 2014, and from there it has only grown in intensity to the point where I felt the need to start a podcast called "Who Cares About the Rock Hall."
And you care about the Rock
And
Hall.
and my co-host Kristen Stutter does not. And that's the dynamic. Is that she's like, why?
What is this? Why do we care? Why do we?
She
care?
knows so much about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now because of the podcast.
Because of
It's very funny. She does not want. It's really against her will.
And now, how many of you've actually attended several? Correct.
I have only been to one induction ceremony.
Oh, I was under the impression it was like every year.
I would like to go every year. I wanted to go last year, but I couldn't get tickets. It was in Cleveland. The class also was not great.
Yeah.
So it just didn't shake out.
They put the bad classes in Cleveland and the good classes in New York.
Kind of. No, I mean that class last year was just by a circumstance, just a really.
Who are we talking?
It was like Bon Jovi, the Moody Blues, Dire Straits, who are fine, and then the Cars, who I like, and then Nina Simone, who's really great.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a dud. They were all acts who could have been inducted 10 years prior. There's nothing fresh about it, like Radiohead this year, who are newly eligible.
Isn't it true that John Bon Jovi thought that he was being iced out of the Hall of Fame because of Jan Wenner, the Rolling Stone publisher?
He did think that, and it was probably true to some extent. But like the idea that he thinks Bon Jovi deserves to get in as soon as they become eligible is wild.
Come on, man, slippery when wet.
They waited 9 years, which is an appropriate time, if short time, for a band of their caliber to wait.
Is it like the Baseball Hall of Fame where there's like a certain amount of years of eligibility, and once you can be on the ballot for X amount of years, and then once that passes, you're out?
No.
Okay.
So 25 years after your first recording is when you become eligible, and then you're eligible. That does not end. Yeah.
Okay.
Like the Zombies have been eligible for 30 years.
That's true. They probably should have gotten it a little bit before.
Yeah, but whatever.
It'll make for a good big jam at the end.
Yeah.
Do they still do the big jam at the end?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But
I guess it depends on who's making up the
class.
The
yeah,
class.
who's willing.
Some people might not be willing to jam.
Yeah.
So are you going to make it out to this one?
Yeah, I've got tickets. I'll be there. Yeah.
Who are you most looking forward to being inducted this year?
The Cure.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see The Cure. I've never seen them before. I really like them. Before they were inducted, I had publicly on my podcast espoused that they are the biggest. They were the biggest snub, I thought. The fact that they couldn't get in until now, they've been eligible for almost 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't see what's holding. I mean, every criteria. Because I have a Jeff. I have a list of criteria that because they don't publish any actual criteria. But I just think a band like The Cure that not only is so critically loved but are so popular and have sold so many records and clearly have a commercial appeal and have songs that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Not even just music fans, but like you can hear. There's so many recognizable Cure songs, but there's also like 5 in particular that you can hear in Walgreens, and they've
reached that point.
Yes, they've reached that level of fame where they are so ubiquitous, and their songs can appeal to anyone while still having music that is challenging and artistic and. They're by no means selling out to reach that level of appeal. It's just
they're
kind
just
of
doing them, and people are getting on board with it.
And they have I think they were innovative, and I think a lot of people were influenced by them. And they have like a look, and like they've been around for so long. It just seems like what's the holdup?
Do you think it's possible?
I'm listening.
I mean. Who knows? Who knows who's listening to these things?
Yes.
Do you think that your podcast is having an influence? Do you think someone that is It's this mysterious organization that is in charge of nominating. Maybe said, I think we ought to do. I've heard this guy.
No. Although,
A definitive no.
Yeah, I do think no. We've had people who were on the nominating committee in the past. We've had people who are on the nominating committee currently.
Yeah.
And if you are on the nominating committee for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you just think like, I wonder if anyone on any podcast is talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you are only going to be led 2 hours because there's no other ones that are devoted to this topic. But I get the feeling no, but I could be surprised.
But it seems. Is it like just like a backroom deal kind of thing? Nothing. There's no official. It's not very transparent.
Yes, right. So there is a nominating committee. Yeah. The members of that committee are public. There's a list that is available, but you don't really know what goes on in there. Sometimes those people in interviews slip out some details, but you don't really know. You get the ballot every year, the list of nominees, and then from there, a larger voting body chooses the inductees.
But it's up to them. Probably, I have a feeling some of the. You got to sell tickets.
Yes,
so that's got to weigh a little bit more. That might be why Bon
this,
Jovi got in.
I think so.
Ultimately,
the CEO of the Hall as an organization is part of the nominating committee, and that individual, it behooves him to include artists that people want to see.
Yeah. Hey, that's music. Hey. Do you have an all-time favorite Rock and Roll Hall of Fame moment?
Ooh, yeah. Some for good reasons and some for bad reasons.
I want to hear the bad reasons for sure.
And if you've listened to my podcast, you know that the induction speech for Mike Love of the Beach Boys.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Is just an all-timer. It's so bitter and confusingly bitter.
Yeah.
Like he calls out Mick Jagger. He's like, first off, he's wearing a tuxedo and a baseball cap. It's a classic prick move.
Was it Hawaiian print? Or did he go for the classy solid?
It was like a black. I think it might have been like a navy, or like an armed forces hat or something that it said on it.
Okay, now I can picture it.
He's just rambling, and he says to Mick Jagger, he's like, I'd like to see Mick Jagger come up on stage every night and sing "I Get Around," but he can't because he's always been too chicken shit to get on stage with the Beach Boys.
What?
It's like, what are you even talking about?
You're all millionaires.
Yes.
Why do you care?
Why and what scenario is he describing? That he's at a Beach Boys concert and he asks for Mick Jagger to get on stage with them.
You'd be surprised how many times it's happened.
Yeah, I guess very very bizarre. And he has a lot. He says a lot of stuff where it seems like he clearly wants a laugh and he doesn't get it. It's rambly, and he calls out Muhammad Ali, who's in the crowd, who I think he brought with him, but it's very strange.
Mike Love is the perfect rock and roll villain.
Yeah,
he is. I think he needs way more attention.
He and Trump are boys. Yeah, he's the worst.
There's no way he could have, but I feel like he started wearing a MAGA hat in 1987.
That hat he wore when he was inducted is pretty close already. It's wild.
There's something about that 1980s era when all the most famous rock and roll bands all hated each other very publicly
and internally too.
Yeah,
Paul McCartney did not show up.
He didn't show up
induction because of lawsuits.
They were suing each other.
Yeah, it was really a crazy time.
And then they all realized, we are leaving a lot of money on the table. Let's go out and tour. And they're still doing it. The Who is touring still.
Yeah.
And I think, wasn't it 10 years ago when Pete Townsend's I physically can't do this anymore. I should not be touring. And then they do 10 more.
Yeah.
I would love it if we could be in our 70s and still be able to pull out the nostalgia.
Yeah, to rock, baby.
To rock, baby.
Yeah. The Stones are still going.
Oh, yeah, they're never going to stop.
No.
Never going to stop.
They're so old.
I know. These are the things when these bands come, I still get that feeling should I go see?
I'm going to see Paul McCartney.
I was thinking about it, but then I saw him in Dodger Stadium last time he was here.
Okay.
Do you ever get the feeling in these shows where you're just a little too detached from it? It's too big.
Yeah.
And I don't feel much
I've
energy
never
around
been
it.
to a show at Dodger Stadium before.
Yeah. I think it's worth it for that.
There's that, and also just like I feel like you don't pass up an opportunity to see Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I have not seen Paul McCartney live in probably 15 years, so I think I should see him again, and I'm excited. I mean, that's one of the best shows I've ever been to.
Well, I don't want to throw a wet blanket on your good time then.
Great. It'll be fun, I promise you.
No, I think you're definitely going to enjoy it. I just once it gets into the stadium, I think the secret is I got to start spending more money to get closer because otherwise you're in the cheap seats and it's too far away.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, I've solved the problem.
There we go. We've fixed it.
We've done it. All right, Joe, we got to get to the meat of this
Please,
podcast.
let's do it.
Now, you obviously are experiencing a lot of career success right now. The 31 videos has got you the attention of the media. You just taped your first Comedy Central special.
Yes.
But now I have to strip all of that away from you. I have to take every last bit of your career and success and ask you, if that was not a part of your life, if you were no longer a part of the entertainment industry,
yes,
what would you do with your life? What path would you go down? What would be your exit strategy?
Interesting. Well, before I realized that comedy was an option, because I kind of when I was growing up, it just didn't seem like I obviously I was obsessed with comedy, but I didn't realize that I could do it, that I was allowed to do it, because I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm not, from a family of entertainers or even creative people, really. So it just felt so foreign and like it wouldn't be allowed, or how do you even it felt like magic.
Yeah.
Again, it just didn't understand.
Real people don't do this.
Yeah. What I just didn't, So with that, the path that I was on originally, before I kind of realized it could be a possibility for me, was I would draw. I was like an illustrator.
I did not know this about you. Do you draw? Have I seen your work?
No, probably not. I mean, every year I draw a birthday cards for my parents and like Mother's Day and Father's Day cards.
So you still draw? It's still
I throw them on Instagram, but
But at one point you were going to pursue this professionally.
Yes.
Now, what is the path of that?
See, I have no idea. I was lucky to be able to pivot from one unstable profession to another, because it was like, well, I was like, in this art program in college and painting and I guess maybe design.
Yeah, that's what I would think that it would be.
I took a few design classes and I liked it, although I never felt proficient at Photoshop in a way that everyone else seemed to be excelling at. And at that point, when I was taking my graphic design course, I had one foot at the door because I knew I wanted to be a comedian, but I was still kind of taking what I thought was a prerequisite for this major that I would soon switch out of.
It feels like especially if you were getting into graphic design, those are long days. Those are long hours. That's very meticulous work.
Yeah. But I wonder if just basic illustration kind of stuff. And I mean, it's still kind of a creative thing, but like drawing funny little cartoons.
Have you ever thought of doing that?
I mean, like that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid.
I did too. I wanted to be a cartoonist, but then I found out I couldn't draw.
Oh, there you go.
I was not good at that part.
I used to draw cartoons and come up with characters when I was very young, and I would do that constantly. So maybe I don't know. And that reminds me that it's something I would like to do, because that would reach back to my first love and then combine it with my current love to create a cartoon where I've designed the characters. And
well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, it feels like this is definitely a skill that for sure can be added to the arsenal. I mean, if you commit yourself again to 31 days, I mean, why not throw a fucking cartoon in there too?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I never learned how to animate. I'm lucky to have friends who are very good at animation and illustration who are professional. I feel not at the professional level, but I do. Yeah, I feel like that was the path, and that would have continued to be the path if comedy did not. Comedy was always in here. I'm pointing to my heart.
For all the listeners, he's pointing to his heart.
It was always there, though. I used to write jokes and like hide them under my mattress, just because it was like, I don't know what to do with these, but I don't want to get rid of them. So that was always, I think, going to happen,
Yeah.
and I always wanted to do it. But like I said, I didn't think it was real.
Did the illustration or drawing, did that always feel like, because comedy obviously seems like it was a passion, did the illustration never quite match up to that as far as like getting the same creative fulfillment out of it? Or is it just similar?
You know, what was also difficult about drawing and painting is that I felt like the art world was extremely bullshit. I felt like the art world, I just like I have these distinct memories of having to look at paintings that really don't have a lot of meaning.
Yeah.
As far as I saw it, and having to stretch myself to go, well, the use of dark tones and light tones really represents a clash of culture, and how society's extremes are constantly in a ballet of just like coming up with all this stuff that I don't
actually believe.
I don't think anyone really believes it, or they've come around to believing in their own bullshit, so they're completely lost.
Yeah.
It was just, I didn't think there was a lot of humor in the art world, which bugged me, and I just constantly felt like I was lying. I was constantly going like, oh, well, you know, it was important to, in the foreground, put this this person's face to emphasize their dominance over, or just...
You had to like give it some explanation that probably was never even thought of.
Like, well, the plight of the American farmer really is in display. It's just like, what do you...
Obviously.
That kind of shit. And I felt like a lot of the people in the art world were humorless, and like it wasn't...
Yeah, I think that's probably... I mean, that's the perception that I get. It seems like... And I think this has come up before in the podcast, too, where... a lot of people had an education in some field that they felt passionate about, but then that level of like the prerequisites just to get to the end of that program kind of took a lot of the fun out of it for a lot of people. So I wonder if you had gone through a program that maybe wasn't so, and I don't even know if it exists, it wasn't as rigidly critical. If it was more like fostering your creative spirit, do you think you would have stuck with it?
I wonder. But as soon as I started doing stand-up, it was like it was over.
This is out the door.
Yeah.
Well, do you think you'll? I mean, you still draw.
Yeah.
Is it still something you do occasionally? Just like
for sure.
Just for your own.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's always for card purposes, because I really do not like buying cards.
Yeah.
Like birthday cards and like Father's Day, Mother's Day cards. But I know that my parents want cards, so then the solution is that I make the cards and I draw them.
If nothing else, your education has provided you a wonderful cottage industry. I mean, perhaps this is the exit strategy. You're just making handmade cards.
Make cards, I could do that. Because I do believe that most like Hallmark cards that you can buy are really embarrassing.
They're pretty rough.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a market out there for cards that don't suck, that are actually funny or actually, cute or whatever.
This is like you've just stumbled upon a tangible exit strategy.
True.
I mean,
yes, I'm seeing a need. I'm fulfilling a need and utilizing my skills.
After this show, we're going to walk up and down Sunset Boulevard. We're going to go to each one of these boutiques. We're going to
pitch this idea. You're
going to get them each a handful of samples, and then they're going to be selling $10 handmade.
Well, it reminds me of how, like, growing up, the comic strips in the newspaper, always very bad.
Yeah.
With a few exceptions. If you just knew about comic strips from the newspaper, you would go, oh, comic strips have to be bad. That's like what they are by definition. They have to be really lame.
Yeah, they're a little corny.
And extremely corny. And then you like go online and see webcomics and you're like, oh, this format can be really funny.
Yeah.
It can be like extremely funny. I had no idea, because of what I was presented almost made it seem like it would be impossible to make any of this shit funny.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's that for greeting cards, where it's like you look at every greeting card and you're like, these are all the lamest shit on earth. But it's like, no, I think there could be a way to make them good. And maybe someone is doing that out there. I'd be shocked if someone wasn't making, like, online legitimately, like, funny greeting cards.
But everyone's also doing comedy too.
It's
so
true.
it's like you can't let that stop you.
Right.
You just got to be the one who releases 31
greeting cards in one day.
I think we've stumbled
Holy
upon this
shit.
next year's stunt.
And I'll sell them at the induction ceremony for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's what Joe makes. He makes congratulations on being inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Dear
cards.
Robert Smith, congratulations.
It's your one-stop shop for everything you need. Well, I think that's a suitable exit strategy if I ever found one. Yeah,
fucking
we're gonna
cards.
get you in the greeting card game, and
yeah.
then 30 years from now, you're gonna be in a suit, shitting them out, hating it,
hating my life, being upset that I left behind my true love.
No, you can do both. I'll let you have comedy back.
Oh, thank you.
I'll let you have comedy back just this once. But we're going to take a little break, Joe.
Great.
When we come back, I'm going to give you an opportunity to sell out big time.
Perfect.
I'm going to give you an opportunity to choose the sponsor for this week's episode. It's my favorite part of the show. Because I love making people money.
Very good.
We'll be right back with more. Talk about it. Controversy abounds. Joe has accidentally double booked himself. He's got to get out the door.
I don't.
He's got to get to the next podcast.
I rescheduled it for tomorrow, so if anything, we can take more time.
All right, then we're going to go a solid 2.5 more hours.
Perfect.
Joe, we have reached my favorite portion of the show because this gives me an opportunity. You know, I don't know. We don't know who's listening to these things.
We have no idea.
We have no idea. There's no way to find
tell.
out. There's no way to find out.
100%.
But I give the opportunity to each one of my guests to choose the sponsor for this week's episode, their episode.
Yeah.
And then maybe someone's listening. They say, "This person's talking about my product. This person's talking about my brand in a way that I can't get enough of. I'm going to bring them on board."
Ooh, okay.
So I'm going to give you this opportunity. The stage is yours.
Wow.
Who is the sponsor for this week's episode of Exit Strategy?
Listen. I hate to be a predictable Peter here, but I think the sponsor for this episode is going to have to be the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Baby!
Do you like music? Do you like Lifetime Achievement Awards? Have you ever watched like the Grammys and you think, this is poorly done, this is fucking it up? Let's say you're watching the Grammys, right?
Yeah.
And someone wins over someone else. You know, Beyonce's Lemonade does not win Album of the Year. I think it was Adele who won over Beyonce.
Yeah.
Beyonce's Lemonade can never be given an award ever again. It's over.
Yeah, it's got one shot.
It cannot get a Grammy.
Yeah.
You know, the mistake has been made. Listen, mistakes are made at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But nothing is permanent and nothing is ruined.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, The Cure does not get in.
This year, even though they're announced.
Let's say they don't get in for the first 14 years of their eligibility. And you can go, this is stupid. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame needs to put in The Cure. What's nice is they can. And they did. And they will. Yes. Because it's not, you get the, first off, you get to, how do I want to say this? You get the, cut this out.
No, I'd like to hear more.
Right. I want to pick the perfect word. You get the value of time.
Yes.
To have perspective on, judging the merits of a career of
the
music.
decision is thought out.
As opposed to trying to determine what is important and quality with less than a year after something's release, you are given the time to properly judge something's merit.
Put it into context.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, how often do awards ceremonies fuck up because they don't have enough time? Like the Academy Awards.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper was not nominated.
Listen, the greatest director of our time, Bradley Cooper, should have been nominated for his directorial debut.
We're going to look back on this in 30 years, scream, and we're going to say, I can't believe this.
We will clench our fists and go, Bradley, you were robbed. You were snubbed. But here's the thing. If there were listen, 25 years, Bradley Cooper will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It might be true.
He'll be eligible. He will certainly be eligible.
It might happen.
But it's essential. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a ceremony where every award is a lifetime achievement award, which I think is the best way to do any ceremony. You get the whole package, baby. It's not Paul Newman finally winning an Academy Award for The Color of Money, which should it have been for The Verdict? Yeah. Should it have been for so many other things?
Like, we got to award him for something. What's he in lately?
There's no pretense of that. It's all we're giving you. You're giving Radiohead. We're giving you the award.
Yeah.
Def Leppard. We're giving you the award. We don't have to say that this weird album is what we give you this award for. It's the whole thing.
Your 2019 album, which nobody wants.
No,
we're
absolutely
not going to celebrate that.
And here's how we're going to do the induction ceremony. We are going to play like a 2-minute or so video documentary package to get people fucking hyped. To get them pumped for your career, to really encapsulate it so that people are like, wow, that band or artist was incredible. Then someone famous is going to come out and they are going to give a speech about why you're awesome and why you're influential and why they care about you. Then you're going to come up, you get to say thanks, you get to say whatever the fuck you want, and then you play your 3 best songs, and then we move on to the next one. And we do that 5 to 7 times, and maybe at the end, everybody plays together.
Fingers crossed, big jam at the end.
And that, I think, is the best way to do a concert.
Yeah.
No, you might say, all killer, no filler.
Play the hits, and then at the end, if there's time, all-star
Get
encore.
something weird.
Yeah. Do they...
I was going to say, get Patti Smith, Beck, and Peter Wolf sharing a microphone as they're singing with a little help from my friends with Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Joan Jett, You don't know what's going to happen. You never know. It creates moments that I don't think happen anymore.
Well, I think the shining moment of that is when Prince came on to perform While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
Yes, at the George Harrison tribute.
Stole... Not just he stole George Harrison.
And that moment does not happen anywhere else.
No.
So it only happened because he, by pure incident, was being inducted into the hall the same year as George Harrison, 2004. He didn't know that song.
Which is insane.
He had never heard it. George Harrison's son was like, Prince is here. I wonder if he'll do the solo. Prince did it because he likes the song Free Falling by Tom Petty. So he was like, sure, I'll play with Tom Petty. I like that guy a lot. And then it was one of the most memorable music moments of all time.
If you've never seen it, turn this off and watch it. But it's Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne,
yes,
and Prince.
Steve Winwood is also in the background on keys. And Danny Harrison, George Harrison's son, is playing.
Yeah.
Prince rips off one of the greatest fucking guitar solos I've ever heard. He's obviously not trying to replicate Eric Clapton's solo from that song. He is just going nuts, and he's like feeling it. And at the very end of during the performance, he falls backwards into the crowd, and like one of his handlers catches him,
like trust fall, like he just does it,
straight up trust fall. So he's just like leaning backwards, ripping off this solo, and then at the very end, he throws his guitar into the air, and because of the camera angles of the performance, you never see it come down. And I like to believe it never came down. He just threw it up, and it just kept going, and it's still going to this day.
It's still there. This is why you got to check out the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
These are the moments that only happen at an induction ceremony. What will happen this year? Will Tom York show up? Will Roxy Music reunite?
Is Tom York maybe not showing up?
He said that he won't, but who knows?
He's going to show up. Where can people see this? When is it airing? Where?
It will air on HBO. You could go to the ceremony in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn on March 29th.
Are you selling a ticket?
I might be if I upgrade mine, and I have an old ticket I got to get rid of, but as of now, no.
So monitor Joe's Twitter.
And then it'll be on HBO in like May, probably.
So steal an HBO Go password. Check it out.
Use the one we're all collectively sharing.
Look for Joe in the crowd. Now, Joe, I mean, people got to know where to find these. I mean, if you do another 31 videos, if you do, you got announcements to make.
Yes.
Where are people finding you online?
At Joe K on Twitter is where you're going to find any announcement like that, or jokes, or shows, or whatever. That's
all
just,
news.
That's the hub, as is JoeKwaczala.com for whatever. But yeah, those are the main things.
Of the 31 videos that you made, is there one that is your favorite that you like to show people the most? Which one should they check out?
Oh, wow. Yeah, the first one that I released, which is where I play a guy who's mad that Apple stole his song for their ringtone. That's like a favorite. I think it's like short. I like the premise. I think it's like a fake little documentary.
Simple and sweet.
I like that one a lot. People also really have taken to this dance tutorial that I did for Tainted Love by Soft Cell, which is a fake dance tutorial where I pretend like it's the official moves from the official music video, which was it has reached so many people that, of course, you get the inevitable, like, I don't know that these are the real dance moves, like those comments underneath the video. Like, I keep trying to find the video that this is referencing, and I can't. He says they're the official moves. The way, like, sarcasm for certain people online will never be understood.
The internet.
Yeah.
Has Soft Cell reached out to you?
No one from Soft Cell has seen it.
That you know of.
That I know.
And maybe this changes today.
I feel like, yeah.
We have the Venn diagram is comedy fans, Soft Cell fans, and
it's quite healthy. It's a real healthy middle section there.
Well, check it out. Joe, thanks for coming by, and I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Oh, thank you.
In the future.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's been Exit Strategy.
Wow.
We'll see you at the hall, baby. Woo! Bye.